There's a moment, and I think you know exactly what I'm talking about, where your mind just stops working the way it should. You're sitting in a meeting, or you're mid-argument with someone you love, or you're staring at a decision you need to make, and instead of clarity, there's just noise, static, a thousand voices pulling you in a thousand different directions, and you're supposed to just think your way through it. Most people can't. And it's not because they're not smart enough. It's because nobody ever taught them how to think. Not really. Music, they were taught what to think, opinions, facts, formulas, but the actual mechanics of clear, disciplined thought, that was left out of the curriculum. The Stoics didn't make that mistake. And what's fascinating about Stoicism is that it wasn't built in a library by someone with nothing to lose. It was forged under pressure, real pressure, the kind that breaks people. Loss, betrayal, failure, grief. The Stoics wrote from inside those moments, not looking back at them safely from a distance. That's why their words still cut music through. That's why thousands of years later you can pick up something one of them wrote on a random Tuesday and feel like they're describing your life right now. They weren't theorizing about clear thinking music. They were desperately trying to survive without losing their minds. And what? They figured out those principles, those habits, that's exactly music, what we're getting into today. 6 steps straight from that tradition. And if you actually apply music them, not just nod along, but genuinely use them, the way you process everything around you will shift. Let's get music into it. Chapter 1. The first step is to slow down before you respond to anything. Music, this sounds almost insultingly simple, and that's exactly why most people skip it. We live in a world that rewards speed. Fast music replies, fast takes, fast decisions. But the Stoics were obsessed with the gap between stimulus and response. That tiny sliver of space between something happening and you reacting to it. Music called it the pause, and they treated it like sacred ground. Because here's the thing. Almost every bad decision you've ever made, you made it fast. You fired off that message before thinking music it through. You said yes before considering what it would cost you. You panicked before assessing whether there was even anything to panic about. The pause doesn't make you slow. It makes you accurate. Before you think anything through, the very first move is to stop, breathe, and buy yourself just a few seconds of music space. Everything else builds on that. Chapter 2, the second step is to separate what happened from what you think about what happened. Something occurs. Your boss snaps at you. A plan falls through. Someone doesn't call back. And in your mind, before you've even consciously processed music it, you've already layered a story on top of it. You've decided what it means. You've decided what it says about you or about them. And then you spend the rest of the day reacting to the story, music, not to what actually happened. The Stoics were relentless about this distinction. Strip it back. What are the bare facts? Not your interpretation, not your fear, not your ego's wounded reading of the situation, just what literally occurred. Because the moment you can see the event clearly, music, without the emotional static sitting on top of it, you're already thinking better than 90% of people around music. You, the story you tell yourself about what happened, is almost always more damaging than what actually happened. Chapter 3. The third step is to ask what is actually in music your control, not what you wish were in your control. Not music what feels like it should be in your control. What actually is. This is the question that cuts through more mental chaos than almost anything else. Because most of the anxiety and confusion we carry around music is tied to things we are fundamentally powerless over: other people's opinions. Music. Outcomes we've already set in motion. The past, the weather, how someone else chooses to behave. The Stoics drew a hard music line here, almost. Aggressively hard. Your thoughts, your choices, your effort, your values. That's your territory. Everything outside of that line. You can influence it, hope for it, work toward music it, but you cannot control it. And the moment you stop trying to mentally manage things that were never yours to manage, your mind gets music quieter, dramatically quieter. That quiet is where clear thinking lives. The fourth music step is to consider. Chapter 4. the opposite of what you currently believe. This one is uncomfortable, and it's supposed to be. The Stoics practice something called turning the obstacle music upside down, looking at a situation from the angle you least want to look at it from. If you're convinced you're right in an argument, what would it mean if you were wrong? If you're certain a decision is safe, music, where is the hidden risk you might be ignoring? If you believe someone acted maliciously, music, toward you, what's the version of events where they were just scared or confused or having the worst week of music, their life? This isn't about doubting yourself into paralysis. It's about stress testing your thinking before reality. Music does it for you. The mind, left unchallenged, will always drift toward confirmation, toward finding the evidence that supports what it already believes. The Stoic music move is to deliberately go looking for the evidence that challenges it. What comes out the other side of that process is an opinion worth having. The fifth step is to zoom out to the chapter 5, longer timeline. Whatever you're dealing with right now, whatever feels urgent, consuming, overwhelming, ask yourself one question. Will this matter in 5 years? Not as a dismissal of your feelings, not as a way of telling yourself nothing matters, but as a genuine recalibration of scale, because the human brain is terrible at perspective. It treats a missed deadline and a life-altering catastrophe, music, with the same cortisol response. It panics equally about a difficult conversation and an actual crisis. The Stoics had a practice of deliberately widening the lens, pull back from the moment. Imagine yourself a year from now, looking back at this. Imagine how small this specific Tuesday is going to feel against the full arc of your life. That's not nihilism. That's proportion. And proportion is one of the rarest and most powerful thinking tools a person can develop. The music's sixth and final step is to chapter 6, act from values, not from mood. This is where everything comes together, because you can pause and separate facts from stories and identify what's in your control and challenge your assumptions, and zoom out and still make a terrible decision if you make it from a place of anger, music, insecurity, or fear. Dressed up as logic, the Stoics' music believe that the clearest thinking is values-driven thinking. Before you respond, before you decide, before you act, ask yourself what the person you want to be would do here. Not the person you are when you're tired and reactive and running on ego, the person you're genuinely trying music to build. That person has a code. And when your decisions run through that code, music, closing, instead of through your current emotional state, you stop making choices you have to clean up later. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Clear thinking isn't music a talent. It was never a talent. It's a practice, a set of deliberate moves you make over and over until they become the default, a music way your mind operates. The Stoics didn't stumble into clarity. They built it brick by brick through exactly the music kind of steps we just walked through. The noise doesn't go away. Life doesn't get simpler. But your relationship to the noise music that you can change, and that changes everything.